Hello, Commanders. It's me, CrazyGolm here. So I'm late to the party with all this Maelstrom content. But I managed to reach the Titan the other day, so I'm mostly caught up. I thought I'd make a guide video on how to unlock the various modules needed to get there. That is, the Anti-Corrosion Cargo Rack, the Caustic Sink Launcher, and the Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer. Now, before we start, this is entirely based on my own experience getting there, and your mileage may vary. I'm using ship engineering, which I very strongly recommend for this, and my fleet carrier was also a great help. So with that in mind, this guide is geared towards more experienced players who have access to these things. This guide is going to be one of my longer videos, so here we go. So firstly, we have the Anti-Corrosion Cargo Rack. It's needed to transport Thargoid cargo without taking internal damage. So basically, we'll need it for later Maelstrom diving. To unlock this, it requires 26 iron, 16 tons of meta-alloys, 18 chemical manipulators, 22 tons of radiation baffles, and 12 tons of neofabric insulation. Iron and chemical manipulators are both engineering materials, but note that the rest of the items are cargo commodities. This module only needs unlocked once, then you can buy it as many times as you wish, with credits as usual. Let's start with the meta-alloys. Basically, meta-alloys are produced by Thargoid Barnacles, and we can harvest them in our SRVs. Our ship for this will basically be an exploration ship, but we'll need 16 tons of cargo space for all the meta-alloys, and we'll also need a detailed surface scanner to actually find the barnacles in the first place. And we'll need an SRV bay, so we can actually harvest them. My first stop was the Pleiades Nebula, however I quickly found out that the region is running out of ripe barnacles. I'm not completely sure if barnacle ripeness automatically changes under the hood, based on harvesting like the Commodities Market or BGS, but be aware that it could, and which ones are ripe is subject to change. Canonn maintains a list of ripe barnacles, and it's well worth a look, and I'll link it in the description. So I went to the Barnacle Forest in the Hyades sector AQYD81 system on planet C2. It appeared for me as the third Thargoid Barnacle point of interest on the planet. The point of interest is patrolled by Thargoid scavenger constructs. They're kind of floaty drone things, but they're easily outgunned even by your Scarab SRV. That said, out of the entire forest, I believe only 6 of the barnacles were ripe, so I needed to relog and do them more than once, basically. You can recognise ripe barnacles as having this glowing green thing on the end of a barnacle barb. When you shoot that, it will drop a mining fragment. Scoop up the mining fragment with your SRV to get 1 ton of meta-alloy as cargo. As an alternative to the barnacle forest, you could find a single ripe barnacle, harvest its mining fragment, and then relog, and it should be ripe when you log in again. This is a very repetitive method, but it should get you all the meta-alloys you need in minutes. The barnacle I did this at was on California Sector BA-A, E6, Planet 4, and it displayed as the 4th barnacle point of interest. It's up to you which way you choose for this. If you don't mind the repetition and you just want meta-alloys really quickly, visit a single barnacle. If you want a more immersive experience and you enjoy the visuals and the environment, check out the Barnacle Forest. I ended up doing a mixture of the two. As another option, you could try to buy meta alloys from other players' fleet carriers. As for me, I didn't brave the player-driven market. As for the remainder of the items, iron is a common raw material used for engineering, so you probably have a good amount of it already. If you're out of it, you can get it by mining asteroids or shooting rocky things in your SRV. It's fairly common, it shouldn't be too hard to get. Chemical manipulators are a manufactured material, and I needed to top up on these. There's a number of ways you can get these, but I went to Dav's Hope. That's in the Hyades sector DRV C223 system, but I previously made a guide about that and it still stands. Radiation baffles can be bought at commodity markets, but only in certain systems. I checked in error for this and bought mine at Sopwith Arsenal in the Tevesa system. As for Neofabric insulation, it's a mission reward and it's hard to get otherwise, so you'll need to find a mission offering it as a reward and give it a go. Once you've gathered all the items needed, just load up a ship with all the goods on board and take it to a human tech broker. And congratulations, you've unlocked the Anti-Corrosion Cargo Rack. In my opinion, that was the most grindy part of this, particularly because I found out the hard way about the lack of ripe barnacles. So if you've got this far, I have good news for what's up ahead. In my opinion, the Caustic Sink Launcher and the Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer are not a grind to get. Yes, they require effort, and they require going different places to do different things, but not mindlessly or repetitively enough to be a grind. And as for the Anti-Corrosion Cargo Rack, bear in mind that it has been in the game since February 2018, which is shortly before I started playing, and 5 years ago. That doesn't change how difficult it is to get, but in my opinion, the newer content has a lot more of a fair progression to it in comparison, so things have got better over time. Next we have the Caustic Sink Launcher, and we can finally go into the Maelstrom. To unlock the Caustic Sink Launcher, we need 15 chemical storage units, 10 galvanizing alloys, 20 caustic shards, 10 corrosive mechanisms, and 5 caustic tissue samples. Chemical storage units and galvanizing alloys are both manufactured engineering materials. I had plenty of them, but they're also available at Dav's Hope. The rest of these materials are all available in the Maelstrom itself. The caustic tissue samples are cargo, hence we needed the Anti-Corrosion Cargo Rack. Because they're cargo, if your ship is destroyed, you lose them, so they're our main priority. You'll want to go in, get a sample, and get out with as little risk as possible. So, it's time to build a ship to dive into the Maelstrom. You'll need a ship with a strong hull, preferably fast to minimize time in the Maelstrom, and good thermals. You also need repair, research and decontamination limpets, and preferably collector limpets as well. I went with a shieldless clipper build, because I wanted to use the universal multi-limpet controller, the clipper's fast, and also because I had one gathering dust already. So what you want to do is go to one of the Maelstroms. I chose Tyrannus because I'd heard it's not far from the drop-in point. Hopefully you don't get too many interdictions. Once you're at the Maelstrom, you'll want to look for caustic generators. Having achieved many rebuys in the Maelstrom already, I highly recommend that you don't beeline for the center. Once you go below 79 kilometers, the caustic damage significantly increases in the Maelstrom cloud, and it can get very dangerous. Instead, I recommend you skim around the very edge of the Maelstrom cloud until you can see a caustic generator. They're these spiky mine things. They're dangerous when they blow up, so be careful. Once you've found a caustic generator, you'll want to sneak up on it, so in my clipper I used silent running. Once you get in sensor range, use a Xeno scanner to scan it. Then choose the sub-target, for me that was a Y key, and now you should be able to launch a research limpet at it. Research limpets have a max range, so you'll need to stay within this, otherwise the limpet will fail. So that means sneakily following the caustic generator. Once the research limpet is done, it'll automatically bring the caustic sample back to you. You just need to open your cargo hatch. Caustic shards are free floating in the Maelstrom. Be careful approaching them in case it takes you too deep into the Maelstrom cloud and you take more caustic damage. It can be deceptive, especially as the navigational center of the Maelstrom is unreliable. My technique was to use a collector limpet and stay as far away from the caustic shard as possible. Corrosive mechanisms can be obtained by blowing up a caustic generator, for example shooting at it. This can be hazardous, but it also drops propulsion elements as well, which are needed for the Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer. A tip for the Maelstrom is that above 79 kilometers, the caustic damage is low enough that you can outrun it using a repair limpet, so you'll want to deploy one soon after taking damage. To unlock the Caustic Sink Launcher, remember that you'll only need 5 caustic samples, so for me that was only 5 successful Maelstrom dives, and a lot more failed ones. Getting destroyed in the Maelstrom was frustrating, but making it out of there with a sample was satisfying gameplay. Your mileage may vary, but I did find that I didn't have to go much out of my way to get the other materials. I mentioned it before, but owning a fleet carrier was really useful for letting me store cargo on board. It meant that I only had to worry about one sample at a time when going into the Maelstrom, and I wasn't risking my entire stock. Once you have the components, take them to a rescue ship tech broker to unlock the Caustic Sink Launcher. And congrats, now you can buy as many of them as you want for credits. That brings us nicely into the Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer. To unlock the Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer, you will need 5 propulsion elements, 5 sensor fragments, 1 unclassified relic, and 5 massive energy surge analytics. Unlike the other 2 modules, the Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer is not a one-time unlock. When you unlock one, you basically purchase one for materials, and you'll need more materials if you want to buy more of them. I only needed one, so bear that in mind when you're following this guide. Propulsion elements can be obtained by blowing up caustic generators, or from the wreckage of Thargoid ships. Sensor fragments can be found by blowing up Thargoid scavengers, or as the remains of Thargoid sensors. Unclassified relics, basically, are converted from Guardian relics, and we'll go over that process later. And massive energy surge analytics or data that's obtained when your ship is hit by the Maelstrom pulse. I found that I already had enough propulsion elements and sensor fragments, so my next move was to get the massive energy surge analytics. To get these, dive into the Maelstrom again, but this time beeline for the center. Fire your Caustic Sink Launcher when the caustic meter gets full. You'll need to bind this to a fire group, so maybe do that first. And then just keep going towards the center until the energy pulse throws you back out. And you've obtained 1 unit of massive energy surge analytics. So do this 5 times and you've got enough of these. Again, because this is a data material and not cargo, if you get a rebuy after obtaining it, you don't lose it. Now what's left is the unclassified relic. There's quite a long process to getting this, but let's take it one step at a time. Firstly, you will want to collect Guardian relics, so head out to a Guardian site, e.g. Sinuf EU-Q C21-10 Planet A3. So basically, Guardian relics are cooked into unclassified relics in 3s, so you'll want 3 of these. And if you can, you might want to get 6 or more just to have a backup attempt. Next, once you have these, you'll be heading to near the Pleiades again. We want to go to a Thargoid surface site, however first, you'll need a Thargoid sensor or Thargoid link, so the door is open on the site. There's a number of ways to get these, but I went to the crashed Thargoid ship on HIP 17403 A4 Moon A. That's just the moon of planet A4. There you can get Thargoid sensors and also sensor fragments if you need them. Be careful, as Thargoid sensors are quite hazardous to your SRV because it doesn't have an Anti-Corrosion Cargo Rack. From here we can now go to our Thargoid surface site, for example the one on Delphi 5A. Then you load the Guardian relics and Thargoid sensor into your SRV and... Hello and welcome to Golm's Kitchen. I'm your host CrazyGolm and today we're cooking unclassified relics. A real family favourite. The ingredients are simple. You will need 3 Guardian relics. We will be cooking with an exquisite Thargoid device air fryer. Simply place 1 Guardian relic in each cooking pot. Once you've done this, activate the device using your data link scanner. Allow the relics to cook for 10 seconds. Be careful not to overcook them, as they may decompose and you will lose unclassified relics. Take care when serving. The food and the fryer can be quite hot. Once you have all the components, you can take them to a rescue ship tech broker to unlock a Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer. And congratulations, you now own a Thargoid Pulse Neutralizer, and you can use it to visit the Titan in the centre of the Maelstrom at last. At time of recording, these are the only tech broker locked modules needed to access the Thargoid Titan. There is a pulse wave Xeno scanner, but it is available for credits, it's not locked. And additionally, you may end up using an abrasion blaster to harvest materials from the Titan. But it's available for credits as well, because it's just a mining tool. Thanks for watching. I put a lot of effort into this guide, so I hope it was helpful. I know it's a longer video, and maybe I should have broken it up into 3 separate videos. But hopefully you were able to follow it. The reason I made this guide was to break down the barrier of entry to the Thargoid Titan into manageable steps. Your mileage may vary, but I hope it works for you. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to leave them in the comments if you want. I might not be able to answer them all, because I'm just figuring out this stuff myself, but that's okay. 07 Commanders, thank you again, and bye for now.